Hello and welcome to Mostly Vintage Cameras. This is a Canon Sure-Shot Telly, and it was the fourth camera to bear the Sure-Shot name, and it came out in October 1986. Now it's interesting to note that whereas there was a Sure-Shot and then a Sure-Shot Mark II and then a Sure-Shot Supreme, this is the first Sure-Shot camera that actually expands upon the basic functionality of an automatic compact with a 38-ish mm lens with an f2.8 aperture. So we're actually expanding the capability of the camera. Or as Canon in the US put it in their advertising in October 86, only Canon makes a camera that'll make people wonder how you became such a hot photographer overnight. And in actual fact, you could say that was a reasonable kind of an advertising claim. But let's take a closer look at it before we get too embroiled in Canon advertising from the past 40 years. It is, on the face of it, standard fare. It's basically a Canon Sure-Shot Supreme, which is quite a nice, elegant camera, onto which Canon have grafted this rather large and ugly protuberance. Now, this does have one little secret feature, which in actual fact I wasn't aware of. In 1986, I was selling these brand new in a retail store, and I didn't realise myself until quite recently that this has a little feature that I didn't even know about. But anyway, I previously made a film about how to put a battery in here that goes under this panel here, so I'll link that in the description below. But let's go ahead and turn it on, and when we turn it on we get an automatic camera. We press the button, it will focus, set the exposure, wind the film on, and all that good stuff. And the standard lens, the first lens if you will, is a 40mm f2.8. A little bit longer than on the standard Sure-Shot. The Sure-Shots are 38. A lot of compact cameras, and if you go back far enough, the Olympus Trip 35, they were all 35mm lenses, but still a wide-ish lens. 40mm is used a lot in the motion picture industry. It's kind of a standard lens that a lot of motion picture films are shot on. If a director doesn't want to use a lens for a particular effect, to compress perspective or to give a wider view or to induce vertigo or something, most shots in most films are going to be shot on a 40mm. So it's a perfectly reasonable focal length to have. Now, the special trick of course is it does that, and when it does that we get a second lens, a 70mm f4.9. Now, not a zoom lens, it's an either or. It's either a 40mm or it's a 70mm. There's nothing in between. You can't have, for example, a 50mm setting. And so this sort of predates zoom compacts. And in 1986, consumers had basically had almost 7 years of automatic 35mm cameras with wide-ish angle lenses that produced perfectly nice photographs. But what they wanted was to get closer to the action. Now what they really wanted, of course, was a camera that would enable them to photograph their children horse riding on a Sunday afternoon, or their children engaged in water sports 50 metres off the beach on their summer holiday. They're not going to get that in a zoom compact, or indeed in a compact camera. Later on, of course, zoom compacts came around and there was a bit of a war to get the biggest, most ridiculous zoom lens on a compact camera, but that's another story for another day. Now, we've previously looked at the Minolta AFT, which was, as far as I know, the first camera that had this twin lens system. It works just by sliding this little lever here. Slightly crude mechanism, so if you push the lever and hold it, yeah, not particularly sophisticated. So what's actually going on that switches between the lenses? If I pop the camera back open and we look inside, if we look just down here at the back of the lens, we can see that's perfectly normal standard fare. Leaf shutter behind the rear element of the lens. And then when we flip the switch, can you see that? A little Tele converter pops up and then folds away. Once more. Now while I've got the back of the camera open, let's load a film. Film loading is very simple. We've got some DX coding pins down here, and the ISO range is from 50 to 1600, so that's a very useful range. film goes over here, of course. The film leader comes up to the marker at the end. And this is flashing to tell me there's a problem. I didn't get that quite right. I'm looking at this from a very difficult angle. And that's a good thing. Knowing when it's gone wrong is very helpful. There we go, and now we can see the frame counters turn to number 1. The 4 bars next to the number 1 are the battery level indicator. So this is telling me I've got a full powered battery in there. And just whilst we're up here, we've got the self timer. So if you press the self timer button, we get a little blinky light, and 10 seconds later it'll take a picture. There we go. As you can hear, not the quietest camera in the world. It is a bit clunky. If you're using this during a church service, probably best not to do that, in fact. But what was it that this camera did that made you such a hot photographer? Well, the twin lenses helped tremendously. Now, although it didn't do the very long telephoto photographs that people actually wanted, the difference between 40 and 70, whilst modest, is significant. This is a picture of, I think it's an elderflower, a shrub or a tree growing nearby, and you can see it's a perfectly nice picture. It's maybe slightly out of focus, but apart from that, it looks like any other picture from any other compact camera. This is the kind of relationship you will get between your subject and your background with any automatic camera, whether it's a Olympus Trip 35, a Mu 2, a Contax T2, a Nikon 35 Ti. They're all broadly going to give you this sort of look and feel. Now if we flip to the 70mm end, yes, it's got bigger. It's actually the same size in the frame, more or less, but it looks bigger and more detailed, and when we look at the background, the relationship between the foreground and the background has changed, and it's a more natural looking image. Now I don't have any pictures of people, but if you were to photograph your friends and relatives at the 70mm end instead of the instead of the 40mm end, you would have a more natural, pleasing portrait. When you use a wider lens, noses appear to be enlarged, ears look a little bit more pinned back. If somebody's got their arm towards the camera, it looks unnaturally elongated. With the 70mm lens, it's not quite a classic portrait format, but it's a much more flattering format than you would get with a 40 or 35mm lens. So, Canon didn't stop there though. They put a few little extra tricks on here, and one of them is this switch here, which I absolutely love. This is the best feature on the camera, apart from those 2 lenses. And it's a switch, a physical, mechanical switch. So, in auto, the flash will fire as and when the camera needs it. So if the flash is needed, the flash will fire. It's quite bright in here, we'll just trick that into firing the flash. There we go. If I want to use the flash when it wouldn't ordinarily fire, and in my view on the compact cameras, this is the best use for the flash on a sunny day, then we can simply turn it on, and if we don't want the flash to fire, we can turn it off. So when I went out with this camera, I saw a post box, a mailbox, with a post office crest on the top. This was on the shady side of the street, the street that wasn't in direct sunlight, and of course the background was the sunny side of the street. So just by turning the flash unit on and using a bit of fill flash on a sunny day, I got a much better picture than had I left it to its own devices. Similarly, I went out for a walk one Sunday afternoon and saw this ivy growing on a tree and thought that's quite attractive, but I knew that the lighting between the tree and the background wouldn't be balanced, so pop the flash unit on, little burst of fill flash, it just evens out the exposure quite nicely. And the Canon Sure Shots, all of them from the very first one, they're really good at balancing flash and daylight. I'm not quite sure how they do it. I've seen it suggested that they link the autofocus distance to the flash power output. I'm not sure if that's true, but by whatever means they're metering, the flash and daylight balance on these Canon Sure Shots is generally very good. We've also got a couple more features. Multiple exposure. I didn't actually get to use this on this roll of film, which is a bit of a shame, but essentially you can take 2 pictures on top of each other. It's become quite fashionable on Instagram and those sorts of places, where you take somebody's silhouette and then you take a picture of a building or some floral pattern, and you get quite an artistic thing. That can be done with this. And then a feature I did use was backlight compensation. This is very handy. It does require a certain amount of knowledge on the part of the photographer, so if you've got a lot of sky in your landscape, press and hold that and it'll brighten up your image. And then lastly, this on-off switch also hides a soft focus filter. Now, it's not the nicest soft focus filter in the world, and it is on a dead man switch, so you can't forget to turn it off effectively. So if you went out for a Sunday afternoon stroll, as I previously mentioned I did, you might see a little scene like this and feel, oh yeah, I'll take a picture of that, and you know, my relatives might be interested in the local landscape around where I live. But throw down the soft focus filter and it does make the picture a little bit more interesting, I would argue. It's a nice thing to have. It wasn't as well executed as perhaps I would have liked, but nonetheless, there it is. Now, when I say it wasn't as well executed as I would like, if we take a look at this next picture, this is certainly not enhanced by the soft focus filter. It's made it worse, if anything. So, use with caution would be my advice when it comes to that. And really, there's not much else left to say about this. There's a little pin, there's a little switch on the bottom here that you can push in with the point of a ballpoint pen or similar, and that will rewind the film prematurely. Otherwise the film will be rewound at the end. And we can mount this on a tripod. That can be especially helpful when you're using multiple exposure feature, or if in this case you're using it for an interior shot. If I took a picture of this pub interior with the flash, it would be sharp and correctly exposed, but it would destroy any kind of atmosphere that the pub had. Now that comes with a dose of caution that if you get any camera movement at all, you will get a blurry picture, as we have here. Now, I did mention that this camera has a kind of secret feature. It's only secret from the point of view that in 1986 I didn't read the instruction book, even though I was selling these things. Around the lens is a filter thread, so we can use external filters. Now it's a 40.5mm thread, which to be frank isn't the most convenient size. There aren't that many 40.5mm filters around, but what we can buy on eBay for, I think it was less than £5, certainly hope it was, is a stepping ring. So this one is a 40.5 to 52mm stepping ring. You can also get them to 49mm, and in 49 and 52mm there are an awful lot more filters around. I wouldn't go bigger than 52 because, as you can see here, it's just beginning to encroach on this autofocus sensor. Now this does mean that it's quite convenient if you want to use a green or a yellow filter to control contrast in black and white film, or you want to use a better soft focus filter or an 81A to give people a bit of a suntan. With that 70mm lens, an 81A to make people look a little bit more healthy, it might very well be a good combination. But that's really it for the Canon SureShot Telly. This switch here is just a little bit fiddly. I think it's a rather nice camera. I think with the two lenses, the simple flash switch, the great thing about the flash, which I didn't mention before, is unlike the ones where you have to cycle through an LCD display, it doesn't reset. If you turn it off, it remains off. You turn it on, it remains on, etc. And then with backlight compensation as well, really quite a capable little camera. Little may not be entirely fair, it is in fact quite a chunky monkey, but if, like me, you take chunky monkey sized clothing, you can just about fit this into the back pocket of your baggy jeans if you were going out for a casual wander. Here's some more photographs taken with it, and I'll meet you in just a moment to discuss if it's worth having. Okay then, there's some photographs from the SureShot Telly. I think you'll agree they're reasonably good, at least technically if not artistically. They were just taken to give an idea of what you could reasonably expect from the camera. Quite sharp, particularly if you look at the picture of the building, even with the teleconverter at 70mm. Really super sharp in that bright lighting. But yeah, a nice camera. well worth having. It's not the smallest automatic compact camera, but it does offer more than just a fixed lens, so I quite like it for that reason. These are starting to become a little more popular. People are, for want of a better word, discovering them, so I would try and pick one up for £50 or less if you can, but don't be surprised if you get one from a retailer if it's £100. They were only something like £170 or £180 when they were new. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this of interest or use, and do have a good day.